Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump has dismissed remarks from Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen after he reiterated Greenland's commitment to Denmark. Asked about the comments from Prime Minister Nielsen, Trump has said that "I don't know who he is, but that will be a big problem for him." Bill and Hillary Clinton has said that they will not be testifying in the House Oversight Committee's Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Chairman of the House Oversight Committee threatens to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress for refusing to testify. The planet logged its third hottest year on record in 2025, extending a run of unprecedented heat, according to US researchers and EU climate monitors. US President has now stated that a US takeover will be great for Venezuela as American oil companies formulate their re-entry strategy into the Venezuelan oil market. Independent human rights groups have stated that the death toll from the crackdown on protests in Iran has crossed 2,500 people. US President Donald Trump tells Iranians to keep protesting, says help is on the way as US mulls strikes. Iran says US seeking pretext for military intervention. Iran officials says 2,500 people are killed in the unrest. Trump says day of reckoning and retribution coming to Minnesota, where 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was killed by an ICE agent as protests continue in Minneapolis. Apple signs multi-year deal with Google to fix Siri with Gemini, which the company promised at WWDC 2024 but has since been delayed. Apple had promised 3 big upgrades to Siri to take it in par with rivals like Gemini and ChatGPT. Now for this hour, we start with Iran. According to a senior Iranian official, Tehran has reportedly asked its regional leaders, including Turkey, to prevent any military escalation by the United States. The official has also warned that Iran would strike US bases in the region if it is attacked by Washington. This comes as mass demonstrations continue across Iran, with the US-based human rights activists news agency reporting that 1,847 protesters have been killed so far. Just yesterday, US President Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social, urging Iranians to continue protesting and take control of the state institutions. Trump has also announced that he has cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials and will not engage with Tehran until it ends what he described as the senseless killings of the protesters. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Gedalia Blum. He's in Middle East Affairs analyst, joins us live from LA. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, as situations escalate, and it seems like Trump has, closed that door of diplomacy, what should we be focusing on, and what do you think could happen?
Well, I think closing the door on the diplomacy is actually moving closer to a solution. And I'll tell you is that the Middle East, especially when it comes to the interacting with the Western world, diplomacy has been used not as a means to come to a solution, but a weapon to use for delay tactics in order for them to continue in whichever direction that they were going to in the first place. And we see this in countless examples. And I think that it's very clear that Donald Trump is not willing to play that game. Number one, he's got 3 years left in his presidency. He's looking to create a legacy. Not only that, but he's also, at the last years of his life. I don't think he wants to even waste 2 minutes through diplomatic channels that are not going to further his goal for success and a successful legacy for his presidency. And so I think actually closing those diplomatic channels is actually what's going to create the pressure that's needed for any kind of solution, which I honestly don't think that it's going to have anything to do with the regime. The toothpaste is out of the tube, as they say. You can't push it back in. And despite the fact that we don't know the exact numbers of the people on the streets protesting against the regime, we do know that there is a significant PR campaign in support of the protesters, of the revolutionaries against the regime, and it's time for this 47-year oppressive, oppressiveness to end already. And I think that by closing these diplomatic channels is actually a sign to the people on the ground to say that we are with you, and we're not going to continue to prop up an illegitimate regime while they continue to rule over you, to kill you, and to suppress your basic human rights.
Right. As you mentioned that the legacy that Trump is trying to leave, but Iranian people at the end of the day are not the voters that he's seeking to, right? So why do you think he's prioritizing this instead of, the domestic politics such as the ICE shootings and ICE protests against ICE agents, ICE immigration crackdown, and Jeffrey Epstein, so many cases that could get Trump more voting? What do you think, what's his motive here?
I mean, I think his motive is not for necessarily his own personal position in the politic of domestic politics in the United States. I think that he sees himself as a world leader, and with a world leader, he understands that, especially in the recent.
We might have lost our guest while we check the connection. We'll be moving on to our next read. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for sharing that insight once again. Now we have a breaking news. The Indian embassy in Tehran has issued a fresh advisory for all Indian nationals in Iran. Citizens, including students, pilgrims, tourists, and business travelers, are being urged to leave the country by any available means, including commercial flights, amid the evolving situation in Iran. The embassy has asked everyone to exercise caution, avoid protests, and stay updated through local media. All travel and identity documents should be kept handy. Now we move the focus back on to Iran. Iranian authorities have sentenced 26-year-old protester Irfan Soltani to death, a move rights groups say could lead to the first execution linked to the latest wave of anti-Khamenei protests. Soltani is an ordinary citizen from Fardis, near Tehran, with no leadership role in the demonstrations. He was arrested earlier this month during a street protest and charged with waging war against God, a capital offense under Iranian law. According to activists, he was denied access to a lawyer and put through a rushed judicial process. His family has been told the sentence could be carried out at any time. The case has sparked international concern, with rights groups warning it may set a precedent for more death sentences as unrest continues across Iran. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Gedalia Blum. He's a Middle East Affairs analyst, joins us live from Eli. Thank you very much, Mr. Blum, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, can you tell us a little bit about this particular individual who's put into death sentence by Iranian government?
I mean, I think it's symbolic. I think it's symbolic that the Iranian regime understands that these protests are decentralized. There's no leadership, there's no infrastructure, there's no funding, there's no outside influence, as much as they would like to say that it's America and Israel influenced. This was grassroots. This was a response to their complete and utter malpractice in running a state. And I think that this execution of this individual with no standing is very illustrative of the way that the regime actually operates. And the fact that they continue to operate this in the face of the world with whose eyes are all on Iran, I think it's very telling. And I think this goes back to why President Trump is ended all diplomatic channels, is because this is who they really are. They really believe that they are executing people in protecting God's image. And this is an evil. This is an evil in this world that is not only being branched out through their proxies and Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, but it's a terror that's creating so much fear on the ground in Iran.
Mr. Blum, when you say they, you mean the regime, right? You're differentiating between the regime and the people.
No, absolutely. The people are the victims. The regime. This is how 40,000 IRGC members could control a whole country. Is not through brute force, but through brute fear. And what they do is they take somebody off the street and they publicize that this is just an ordinary person and that he stood up against the regime. And now we're going to set up the cranes and hang him in public view and let him sit there for a number of days so everybody can understand what happens to you as a normal person when you speak out against the regime. And when they put that level of fear into people, that's how they keep control, and that's what they're trying to maintain, that level of control. But like I said before, the toothpaste is already out of the tube. There's no pushing it back. The people on the ground are so large in numbers that they don't feel that they are going to be individually isolated and picked out instead, but they feel that they do have this like kind of mob strength where you have anonymity, but you do have the strength in numbers to walk down the streets in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people at the same time.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that. And Mr. Blum, as you also highlighted that the Iranian government blames outsiders instead of blaming themselves for the oppression of the people over there. They blame Israel. They blame U.S. How is this news covered in Israel, and how does Israeli government sees Iranian regime continuously pointing fingers at themselves for their own mistake, outsiders?
I mean, listen, we see it as obviously a falsity, almost laughable. It's almost satirical that they're sitting there executing their own people, shooting them in the eye, shooting them in the face on purpose in order to create these scars and to kill them. And then they turn around and say that this is some sort of like Mossad conspiracy. We've seen this forever, and we see this through all fascists and all dictatorships and all Islamist rulers who are not free societies, but fierce societies who oppress their own people. And the only way for their people to stay with them is for these leaders to create an enemy from outside. And when you create an enemy from outside, you could always blame all the hardships of the people that they're responsible for on somebody external. And so this is something that we've heard for the last 47 years. We hear it from many other nations, North Korea. We heard it from Venezuela. We still hear it from Venezuela. We hear it from these fierce societies that they need to have an enemy outside to blame. And we know this game, and so nobody takes their rhetoric seriously. And I don't think, not Israelis, not Iranians. Everybody, it's very clear what they're doing, and they're desperate. And this accusation of external players is just a very clear illustration of their desperation.
And Mr. Blum, we saw a few years ago the Mahsa Amini protest, which led to some kind of changing in the women's head coverings, scarves, and hijab laws that were forcefully applied to Iranian people in Iran. Do you think that the death penalty of Mr. Erfan Soltani would have a similar effect? And just maybe Iranian government will just maybe change a little bit rules here and there, and then just wait for this protest to fizzle out. What's the change? What's the difference if that were to happen? The same thing that was to happen today regarding this protest that's ongoing, and then the difference with Mahsa Amini effect from previous protest which we saw in Iran. It was also huge.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a very significant difference between these two protests. The previous one that you mentioned
Yes.
was about human rights issues, in which everybody, of course, is very much attuned to and wants to see human rights for their fellow man. On the other side of it, though, is that fear, that level of fear that the government puts into people, that nobody wanted to come en masse onto the streets and put themselves on the line and becoming the next victim. What's different here is the economic variable, which is what actually triggered these protests, which is the complete mismanagement of the currency, of water management, of energy, of all these different. They converged, and all of a sudden now we have the university students are the ones that actually triggered and joined in on this ideological protest. So I see this as much different. I don't see going back to this, especially with the Iranian regime's surveillance state, in which they are monitoring every single person as much as they can who's on the street. And I think that these people understand that once they showed their face, once the women showed their hair, that they will always be some sort of digital file somewhere in the IRGC, and it's only a matter of time till somebody comes and knocks on their door at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they would rather die on the streets than not be able to sleep at night under a fear society, thinking that they were going to be dragged out to be tortured and killed. And especially when it comes to generational, they don't want to see that their children are also in that situation.
Right. And lastly, do you know, not do you know, but like our generation or my generation, we don't have the image of Iran other than this current regime. Do you think that if this regime was to fall over, how will that change or liberate their image? And how do you think this will be affecting the image of Iran that a lot of people right now have around the world?
That's the $1 million question, because we all see that, first of all, Iran is a very diverse region. It's a very diverse country. There's people from different ethnicities, different religions, different cultures, different values, all the way from those who support the Islamic regime to those who are looking to separate themselves from the state of Iran. So the day after, how Iran is going to be seen around the world is really depending on if those who could converge around the fall of the regime, if they could actually sit down and talk about the day after and come to some sort of peaceful transition in which all parties can maintain some sort of sovereignty within a state, I think that the future will be free. I'm not sure how exactly free. We are talking about the Middle East. We're not talking about the United States. There are cultural differences, but overall, it's a big question. I'm not willing to answer it because whatever I answer is going to be wrong. But I am speaking to a lot of people who are at the levels of power around Iran, and I'm pushing them as much as I can to end the conflict within the opposition, because there's significant conflict. And so it's up to the Iranian people how the world is going to see them by the way that they transition from this oppressive regime to whatever it is going to come forward. It's either going to be a free society, or it's going to be what we see today in Syria, which Syria doesn't really exist as a single entity. It's broken up into different regions, controlled by different people. And so we might actually see that. I have no idea.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Gedalia Blum for joining us as a Middle East Affairs analyst from Ellie. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Europe. Danish Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen has confirmed that Denmark is engaged in an ongoing dialogue with NATO to significantly boost military activities and security in the Arctic. According to him, Denmark is moving forward with a more permanent and larger military presence in Greenland, which includes the participation of other NATO allies. This diplomatic push follows renewed pressure from the Trump administration, which has repeatedly called for the United States to take control of Greenland to counter Russian and Chinese influence. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Colin Chong-Yu-Keith. He's a Foreign Affairs and Security and Strategy Analyst, joins us live from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much, Mr. Collins, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Thank you. Now, as things evolve or, it's becoming worse or escalates towards U.S.'s attitude towards Greenland, what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation?
Well, we've seen how, the intention by Denmark to have this ongoing dialogue with NATO is meant to, to have this enhancement of credibility and leverage ahead of the meeting in the White House. And of course, also Denmark wants to signal to NATO that it is also a responsible, partner, and of course also to show, to give a message to Trump that he has this capacity, readiness, and intent to protect Greenland, and is coordinating with NATO to ensure that it happens. And of course also to NATO allies, Denmark is trying to be seen to step up as a reliable Arctic partner, and of course also this is all being part of the moves by Denmark to ensure that it has this legitimacy, it has this readiness and capacity to protect Greenland and to counter any Trump's move on Greenland, partly as a deterrence, partly as a reassurance to both NATO and to Trump. But of course, we have seen how this is all quite futile, in which, by one way or the other, you have to confront the fact that Greenland's future security and safety will be in the hands of Washington. No European power, no NATO power is capable to protect Greenland from the forces of Russia and China. And of course, by saying Greenland, it means the security of the Arctic as a whole. So only Washington has the hard power capacity to not only protect Greenland, but of course also to bolster the defense of NATO, and to bolster the security of Europe and the Arctic, and to halt the presence, the incursions, and of course also the power presence of both Moscow and Beijing in this part of this critical geographical area that will have these profound implications on the future security of Europe and the US itself.
And how do you analyze, NATO? Is NATO currently capable, or Denmark on its own is capable, as Denmark's Danish defense minister has confirmed that Denmark is engaged in, ongoing dialogue with NATO. What is their capacity like? Of course, they're nowhere compared to US.
Well, before Trump came to the picture, we have seen how, NATO is on the brink of, collapse or irrelevance. And the defense spending by partners, by NATO members have been, in a sad state, and President Trump has ensured, has compelled and has pressured, the other NATO members to step up, and of course also to increase their own, defense budget and defense commitment to NATO. And this is, the single biggest factor as to how, President Trump has revitalized NATO, and of course also in facing these renewed threats from Russia and from China, and of course also even with that, enhancement of capacity, NATO is ill-equipped. In no ways that NATO has the capacity to confront, the hard power threats posed by Moscow and Beijing, especially in the Arctic, and without the support of Washington. So this is the stark reality that NATO and Europe will have to confront, and the intent by President Trump to take over Greenland, to provide the security umbrella needed in the long-term projection is timely. It has been long overdue, and this wouldn't have happened in the administration of both Biden and Obama. And this is the right timing, the apt time for Washington to finally, get in control of Greenland, and to ensure that, there's no potential, repercussions, or there's no potential backfiring measures from this move, knowing how Moscow and Beijing will react, and of course seeing how President Trump has acted in Venezuela and what he might be acting in Iran now. There's no way for Beijing or Moscow to retaliate as strong as they might have done so under the the presidency of Biden or Obama. So this is the time frame that NATO and Europe should in fact welcome with support, instead of trying to consolidate, instead of trying to still have this kind of hostility and confrontation with the US. This is the right opening for Europe and NATO to defend themselves, not against the US, but against the real adversaries that have been threatening the security of Europe and NATO, which are primarily Russia and China, for now and even for the next couple of years to come.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Collins Chong-Yu-Keat for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout. Thank you. Now we move the focus on to Thailand. At least 22 people have been killed and 64 people injured after a construction crane collapsed onto a moving passenger train in northeastern Thailand. The crane derailed the train, crushing several carriages and setting one coach on fire. Nearly 200 passengers were on board when the accident occurred around 9 in the morning of local time. As the train was traveling from Bangkok to Ubon, Ratchathani province, rescue teams evacuated all passengers with dozens of injured taken to nearby hospitals. 8 remain in critical condition, including a 1-year-old child and an 85-year-old elderly passenger. The crane was part of a China-backed railway project linking Bangkok to Laos and onward to China. Thailand's Prime Minister has ordered a full investigation, calling for accountability and warning the disaster was likely caused by negligence and safety lapses, amid growing concerns over construction standards in the country. Let's hear what Thai authorities have shared.
จากรายงานสถานการณ์ล่าสุดเนี่ยก็เราพบว่ามีผู้บาดเจ็บนะครับและเสียชีวิตรวมกันทั้งหมด86รายครับโดยเสียชีวิต22รายครับมีการนำศพส่งโรงพยาบาลศิริแล้วก็มีผู้ที่ได้รับบาดเจ็บรวมทั้งหมด64รายอยู่ในกลุ่มอาการรุนแรงที่อยู่ในกลุ่มสีแดงเนี่ย8รายแล้วก็อยู่ในกลุ่มอาการปานกลางที่เรียกว่าสีเหลือง19รายแล้วก็อยู่ในกลุ่มอาการเล็กน้อยครับกลุ่มสีเขียวทั้งหมด37รายนะครับผู้ที่ได้รับบาดเจ็บรุนแรงเนี่ยนะครับมีตั้งแต่เด็กหญิงอายุ1ปีครับไปจนถึงผู้สูงอายุ85ปี
Now we move on to our next news. Farmers from the Coordination Rural Union are using their tractors to slow traffic at the entrance of Toulouse to Blagnac airports, staging a blockade to press their demands in France. Protesters say they feel sidelined compared with other farming unions and denounce what they describe as unequal treatment by the authorities. These actions in Toulouse coincide with farmers withdrawing from a 24-hour siege of the National Assembly in Paris, as farmers are protesting against cheap agriculture imports and demanding immediate government action on food security and financial aid. Let's listen into what one of the farmers has shared.
Rural du Gers. Nous sommes venus défendre notre cause comme depuis plus de mois. Aujourd'hui, on défend toujours la même chose, que le gouvernement ne veut pas nous entendre, ne veut pas nous écouter, qu'il y a 2 poids et 2 mesures. Il y en a qui ont été à Paris, ils ont eu le tapis rouge. Nous, on arrive ici à l'aéroport de Toulouse, Blagnac, et on a un accueil de CRS, je pense qu'ils sont une centaine, pas loin, ou je sais pas, 80 pour vous voyez, 50 agriculteurs, parce que les autres, ils se sont fait bloquer dans Toulouse ailleurs, ils ont été dispersés. Voilà, et c'est que le problème de nourriture sera général, qu'on va être dépendant des autres pays, et le jour où les autres pays auront décidé de nous envoyer de la nourriture, eh là, les Français vont crever de faim, et malheureusement, c'est dur à dire, mais un jour la France aura des problèmes pour manger, on aura du mal à s'en sortir, et à manger à sa faim. Nous, dans les campagnes, on y arrivera, mais il y a des gens de la ville qui auront du mal à manger, et je pense qu'il faut prendre conscience et se mobiliser tous ensemble pour aujourd'hui défendre notre agriculture et défendre notre avenir.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.